What up?
Yo.
Good morning to everybody. It is Monday. New start to the week. I will be streaming later today, but I got tagged in let's say the thread, and somebody's saying something that I have long said. Now today we're going to be discussing this whole Spider Boy, or excuse me, we're not even going to call him Spider Boy. Let's call him what he is, Iron Boy. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I've been on record. I've done videos about this and discussing how this character is not Spider-Man. He's just Spider-Man by name, but he doesn't act like Spider-Man. He's not Spider-Man. He's just basically there to, I don't know, Iron Man, and Iron Man made him. And it's weird. Anybody that, at least in my honest opinion, that knows this character, that you cannot sit up here and be like, yeah, that's Spider-Man. Even with the million different versions of Spider-Man that we've had over the years, that ain't Spider-Man. And someone made a post saying that, you know, what's your opinion on MCU Spider-Man in general? And then somebody retweeted and it got all kinds of likes, which I was actually surprised, saying that the MCU took Marvel's GOAT and turned him into a Tony Stark legacy character. Now, I said that and everybody hated me for it, but he's 100% correct. Like, make no mistake, this guy is 110% correct. But I got tagged in this, and person said we're sick and tired of Uncle Ben, though. It's the third live action reboot. That's why they had to switch it up. Like, what you're about to see in this thread as I go through it is this person and another person end up coming in is just trying to, and I've said this, I don't know how many times, I don't know how many videos, in which what they do is they try to justify reasonings as to why they actually can put up with the character or why they like the character. And they will go through great lengths to do that, but it doesn't even make sense. They'll make arguments that don't make sense, such as this, right? Like, what does like you could have put, a copy and paste version of Spider-Man from the comic books, or even some of the other depictions of Spider-Man, which I feel like out of the three in recent years, he's the worst one. I don't care what you have to say about, you know, Andrew or whoever. Like, this is the worst Spider-Man, the one that's in the MCU, as far as it being Spider-Man. Now, I get it. Dog's barking. But I get it. Some of you guys like the character, and I understand it, but that doesn't make it accurate or anything like that. That doesn't mean that's who it is. And what this person does is bring up something completely random, and then they say, okay, well, this is why they did. Like, no, that doesn't make sense, because they could have put the same exact. Hey, Gammy, I'm trying to make a point here, and you in my video yelling. Shut up. Anyway, they could have copied and pasted some of the other depictions of Spider-Man, and it would have worked still. This is a Spider-Man, especially part of a larger universe, so they have a lot going for them that it's even outside of the character that incentivizes people to see it. So I understand it being a sort of soft reboot in the sense that it's not the same Spider-Man that you have recently seen, but that's irrelevant. They could have been still, he's still dead. Maybe he doesn't play out on screen like you expect it to, but even if they did that, it wouldn't have mattered. They could have not done that, and it still would have been a more accurate depiction, or they could have made it a more accurate depiction of Spider-Man. But that's not what this is. And again, you get these people that say these random things, and I'm like, dude, what this sounds like is that, you know, normies wanting to project their own personal view of Spider-Man, right? And it's just Spider-Man in a suit, and they could do whatever. And it's just, this is why I say that though I appreciate the normies for supporting things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because what it does is it enforces these comic book characters being brought to life. And I love that you get these, now the people who want to invest, movie studios wanting to invest more so in the live action depiction of classic comic book characters that I grew up on. The negative to that, however, is you get stuff like this. People that have no connection to the character, know nothing about the character aside that he's red and blue and web slings. So anything that, as long as that's there, that's all they care about. So this person is saying things like, well, they had to do it because they got to make money. What if they didn't do it? Like, I'm like, dude, there was not one person. You can go predate everything, right? Before we knew about Spider-Man, not one person was ever calling for Spider-Man to be under Iron Man. Nobody ever called for that. Nobody called for that. That is just something that for whatever reason they did. and it was corny. You know what I mean? But that's not like it was a demand. So she's trying to play this consumer like card. But that's, again, it doesn't make sense. It was a needless change is my argument. And then you get this guy right here who, I would say this right here embodies the arrogant normies, right? You sound way too personally invested in what you think this character should represent. Spider-Man is for everybody. Now, this guy, of course, doesn't realize that's a contradiction in terms, right? Because I'm part of everyone, am I not? So why does his opinion get to override mine, right? Again, goes back to the simple fact that people say things that don't make any sort of sense to try to get you to shut up and more so justify what happens. Get off your high horse saying, oh, this Spider-Man sucks because Uncle Ben doesn't die on screen. Never once did I claim that ever. It's way more of a normie to assume we need to see the origin again. Again, never once did I ever claim that, but this is the type of, I almost said a word. These are the type of weirdos that I, get into these sort of arguments with online. And look, man, I think a couple of different things can be true when it comes to characters and their live action depictions. And that I understand that there is an appeal to normies now, because certainly within the last 10 years, comic book films have become the hot thing. People that used to think that it was for losers, now the biggest comic book geeks, I see them myself, people that I went to school with. Kind of interesting how once something hits the sort of pop culture, everybody's into it now. And I understand that. And I'm not a gatekeeper. I feel like comic books, and in the sense this guy's correct, that Spider-Man is for everybody. But in being for everybody, he could still be Spider-Man. I've said on numerous occasions, I've talked about this in my podcast as well, and how my theory when it comes to, you might hear guys more on the grass, everybody wants to start doing stuff when I get on video. Nonetheless, you can see someone, or more so see these characters play out, and only thing that sticks out to you is the symbolism, what they represent in terms of costume. God dog it, that thing is getting loud. But I get that. And I'm not saying that you have to be a comic book expert to enjoy it. What I'm saying is, because of that, there exists no purpose other than arrogance by way of the writers to make changes like that are needless. You took the most prominent Marvel superhero and you turned him into Iron Boy. It just sounds silly. What do you mean you tell me Spider-Man's under Iron Man? Like, what is this? What is it? You mean Iron Man makes Spider-Man? It sounds stupid. It's almost a curse to be knowledgeable on the comic books. But the argument that people like myself make is that even if they kept it, let's say, more true to the comic books, in terms of how the characters interact with one another, let's say in that regards, considering certainly where the Marvel Cinematic Universe is at, even if they kept it true, it would still not only be new to you, considering the mountains and mountains of source material and stories that haven't been told, you still enjoy it. You would. You still enjoy it. And I think this is why a lot of guys like myself get frustrated when we see the needless changes, because it's lousy to be like, well, they have to change these to make them appeal to. No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't have to do that at all. That's just something that, again, for whatever reason, even though the material is there for you, screenwriters feel that they have to make these changes. Directors or whoever's producers more so feel like they have to make these changes. It's just arrogance, right? This is arrogance. Like, I got to put my stamp on this. So instead of we having this character do this or act like this like he's always been, let's make him do this. And it doesn't mean that you have to tell the same exact story. You can even have a, let's say, newer, fresher fresher like version, let's say, of the character that still kept true or relatively true to the source material that's respected. This is why I've said that no one is really asking for it to be 100% like the comic books. Even if they did make it 100% like the comic books, it will still be new to you because you don't read comics, and that's fine. But it's a difference between making it 100% like the comic books and just respecting what it is, the source. This Spider-Man disrespects the source material. It really does. It disrespects the source. That ain't Spider-Man. He's Spider-Man in name. He's Spider-Man in look. But aside from that, that ain't no damn Spider-Man. I don't know who that is. I ain't no disrespect to Tom Holland. This ain't no disrespect to anybody. I'm just saying what it is. That ain't Spider-Man. By name he is. That's it. MCU stands feel like they have to, and this is why you see recent hijacks, let's say, in the actual comic books, because you get people that are writing comics that aren't really connected to the source material. And when you have that arrogance about you, and this is why I think that it takes a certain type of writer to write a comic, no matter how successful or how creative you are, simply because there's a difference between, like, what you have with a comic book is like, look, these are characters that have existed long before you exist, before you even thought about in some cases. Guys like young like me who weren't born past, beyond 1990s. So in order for someone that's my age to say, write a story based on this comic book character, they would have to have the knowledge base to respect it while also being able to come up with fresher, new ideas, stakes high, and so forth. So the great writer can take that and respect it and come up with something fresh. The mediocre to bad writer takes just the symbolism of the character and feels as if they have to interject their own personal preferences on it, right? And it's more so changing the character as it is to, let's say, putting a branch on, or growing, let's say, a branch on the Spider-Man tree. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what it is, these weirdos, man. and I get it so often. These guys hit me up on Twitter and they're like saying these things that I've never claimed, and it's like they have no better arguments. And it's because, again, it's fun. They make like I'm the one that's so way too personally invested, and I'm like, I think it's them because I don't go into, for example, other fandoms that I'm not a part of, and I see a movie, like I talk about Star Wars all the time. I'm not a Star Wars guy, though I have seen movies. I'm not gonna try to see, like, act like that has to be changed. It's for me, just because I'm not necessarily into it. And if somebody who is more knowledgeable on it points something out to me and says, like, well, this new Star Wars movie kind of craps on this, and this, I can't be like, well, that's just it's not for you. Like, I don't do that. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that. That's it. This is why I say you can enjoy this, and I don't knock you guys for enjoying things. My whole argument has been, like, what's the point of taking characters, aside from the symbolism and you trying, again, money grab in a sense that you want to capture the that's recognizable because Spider-Man's a cultural icon. But if the idea is to make this depiction that isn't even him, what's the point of using the character aside from that? Why not just have a new, fresh character that's Iron Boy? Or that acts as Iron Boy by a different name that isn't Iron Boy. You know what I'm saying? That could easily be done, but it's not. So it's always weird for someone to act like I'm the problem when all I did was read mountains and mountains of source material, educate others on the source material, and now I see it play out and it's nothing like it in terms of how the character acts, what it really embodies the character. What I'm just supposed to be like, well, that's just different universe, right? It's all, oh, it's a different universe, they're the same, it's a different universe. Like, what's the point of going to grab the character if you're not going to, at the very minimum, bare minimum, respect the source material? There's zero point to doing that. There's no point to doing it. You could have easily put another character specifically for the movie that is a different character if that was what you were trying to do. There's no reason to grab a character in any universe, TV, animated, doesn't matter, to grab them and then just say, you know what, we'll just have them be this character by his or her name, and that's it. We're not gonna make it look like the character. We're not gonna make it act like the character. We're just gonna. It's just that's who it is. You guys,